By the year 2050, nearly 80% of the Earth's population will live in urban cities. Applying the most conservative estimates to current demographic trends, the human population will increase by about 3 billion people by then. Estimated hikers of the new land, about 20% larger than Brazil, will be needed to grow enough food to feed them if traditional farming methods continue as they are practiced today at present throughout the world. Over 80% of the land that is suitable for rising crops is in use. Historically, some 15% of that has been laid waste by poor management practices. What can be done to ensure enough food for the world's population to live on? The concept of indoor farming is not new. Hothouse production of tomatoes and other produce has been in vogue for some time. What is new is the urgent need to scale up this technology to accommodate another 3 billion people. Many believe an entirely new approach to indoor farming is required, employing cutting-edge technologies. One such proposal is for the vertical farm. The concept is of multi-story buildings in which food crops are growing in environmentally controlled conditions, situated in the heart of urban centers, and they would drastically reduce the amount of transportation required to bring food to consumers. Vertical farms would need to be efficient, cheap to construct, and safe to operate. If successfully implemented, proponents claim vertical farms offer the promise of urban renewal or sustainable production of a safe and varied food supply through year-round production of all crops, and the eventual repair of ecosystems that have been sacrificed for horizontal farming. It took him 10,000 years to learn how to grow most of the crops we now take for granted. Another way, we despoiled most of the land we worked, often turning verdant natural ecozones into semi-arid deserts. Within that same time frame, we evolved into an urban species in which 60% of the human population now lives vertically in cities. This means that for the majority, we humans have shelter from the elements, yet we subject our food bearing in plants to the rigorous of the great outdoors and can do no more than hope for a good weather year. However, more often that not now, due to a rapidly changing climate. That is not what happens. Massive floods, long droughts, hurricanes, and severe monsoons take their toll each year, destroying millions of tons of valuable crops. The supporters of vertical farming claim many potential advantages for the system. For instance, crops would be produced all year round, and they would be kept in artificially controlled, optimum growing conditions, and there would be no weather-related crop failures due to droughts, floods, or pests. Other food could be grown organically, eliminating the need for herbicides, pesticides, and fertilizers. The system would greatly reduce the incidence of many infectious diseases that are acquired at the agricultural interface. Although the system would consume energy, it would return energy to the grid via methane in generation from composting non-edible parts of plants. It would also dramatically reduce fossil fuel use by cutting out the need for tractors, plants, and shipping. A major drawback of vertical farming, however, is that the plants would require artificial light. Without it, those plants nearest the windows would be exposed to more sunlight and grow more quickly, reducing the efficiency of the system. Single-story greenhouses have the benefits of natural overhead lights. Even so, many still need artificial lighting. A multi-story facility with no natural overhead lights would require far more. Generating enough lights could be prohibitively expensive and useless cheap, renewable energy is available, and this appears to be rather a failure aspiration than a likelihood for the near future. One variation on vertical farming that has been developed is to grow plants in stacked trays trails that move on rails. Moving the trails allows the plants and to get enough sunlight. This system is already in operation and works well within a single-story greenhouse with light reaching it from above. It's not certain, however, that it can be made to work without that overhead natural light. Vertical farming is an attempt to address the undoubted problems that we face in producing enough food for a growing population at the moment, though more needs to be done to reduce the detrimental impact it would have on the environment, particularly as regards the use of energy, where it is possible that much of our food will be grown in skyscrapers in future. Most experts currently believe it is far more likely that we will simply use the space available on urban rooftops. For Craig wheel in Scotland is the world's first and only rotating boat lift. Opened in 2002, only rotating is essential to their ambitious 84.5 million pounds Millennium Link projects to restore navigability across Scotland by connecting the historic waterways of the Forth, Clady, and Eoling canals. The major challenge of the project lay in the fact that the Forth, Clady canal is situated 35 meters below the level of the Eoling Canal. Historically, the two canals had been joined near the town of Falkirk by a sequence of 11 locks. Enclosed section of canal in which the water level could be raised or lowered. Thus, the stepped down across a distance of 1.5 kilometers. This had been dismantled in 1933, thereby breaking the link when the project was launched in 1994. The British Waterways Authority were keen to create a dramatic 21st century landmark, which would not only be a fitting commemoration of the millennium, but also a lasting symbol of the economic regeneration of the region. Numerous ideas were submitted for the projects, including concepts ranging from rolling eggs to tiddling tanks, from giant sea saws to overhead maneuvers. The eventual winner was a plan for the huge rotating steel balls lifts which were to become the forklift wheel. The unique shape of the structure is claimed to have been inspired by various sources, both man-made and nature. Most notable calic double-headed X, but also the vast turning propeller of a shape, the replicate of the wheel of the span of a fish. The various parts of the forklift wheel were all constructed and assembled like one giant toy building site as Butterley engineers steel works in Derbyshire, some 400 kilometers from Florida. A team there carefully assembled the 1,200 tons of steel, painstakingly fitting the pieces together to an accuracy of just 10 millimeters to ensure a perfect final fit. In the summer of 2001, the structure was then dismantled and transported on 35 lorries to Falkirk, and before all being bottled back together again on the ground, and finally lifted into position in 5 large sections by crane. And the wheel would lead to withstand immense and constantly changing stresses as it rotated. So to make the structure more robust, the steel sections were bottled rather than welded together. Over 45,000 bottles holes were matched with their bolts, and each bolt were hand tightened. The wheel consists of 2 sets of opposite X-shaped arms attached about 25 meters apart to fix the center span and to diametrically opposed water-filled gondolas, each with a capacity of 360,000 liters and fitted between the ends of their arms. These gondolas always weigh the same, whether or not they are carrying bolts. This is because, according to Archimedes' principle of displacement, a floating object displaces their own weights in water. So when the bolts enter a gondola, the amount of water leaving the gondola weighs exactly the same as the bolts. This keeps the wheel balanced, and so despite its enormous mass, it rotates through 180 in 5.5 minutes. We're using very little power. It takes just 1.5 kilowatts hours of energy to rotate the wheel. Roughly is the same as boiling its small domestic kettle of water, both leading into be lifted up enter the canal basin at the level of the fourth clady canal, and then enter the lower canal of the wheel. To hydraulic steel gates are raised so as to seal the gondola off from the water in the canal basin. The water between the gates is then pumped out hydraulic clamp, which prevents the arms of the wheel moving where the gondola is docked. Is removed, allowing the wheel to turn. In the central machine room, an array of 10 hydraulic motors then begin to rotate the central axle. The axle connects to the outer arms of the wheel, which begin to rotate at the speed of 1 in 8 of the revolution per minute. As the wheel rotates, the gondolas are kept in the upright position by a simple gearing gear, gear, gearing, gearing system to 8-meter wide cogs orbit a fixed linear cog of the same width, connected by two small cogs traveling in the opposite direction to the outer cogs, so ensuring that the gondolas always remain level. When the gondolas reaches the top, the boss passes straight onto the aqueduct situated 24 meters above the canal basin. The remaining 11 meters of lift needed to reach the Ionian Canal is achieved by means of a pair of logs. The wheel could not be constructed to elevate the box over the 435 meter difference between the two canals. Owing to the presence of the historical importance Antonomia which it was built by the Romans in the 2nd century AD, both travel under this wall via a tunnel, then through the logs, and finally onto the Ionian canals. Such is our dependence on fossil fuels, and such is the volume of carbon dioxide already released into the atmosphere, that many experts agree that significant global warming is now inevitable. They believe They believe that the best we can do is keep it at a reasonable level. As a present, the only serious option for doing this is cutting back over carbon emissions. But where a few countries are making major strides in this regard, the majority are having great difficulty, even stemming the rate of increase, let alone reversing it. Consequently, increasing number of scientists begin to explore the alternative of geoengineering, in a term which generally referred to the international large-scale manipulation of the environment. According to its proponent, geoengineering is the equivalent of a backup generator. If Plan A, reducing our dependency on fossil fuels, falls, we require Plan B, employing grand schemes to slow down or reverse the process of global warming. Geoengineering has been shown to work, at least on a small localized scale, for decades. A modern-day paradise in Moscow have taken place under clear blue sky. Aircrafts have been deposited dry ice, silver, iodine, and cement and powder to disperse clouds. In many of their schemes now suggested look to do the opposite and reduce the amount of sunlight reaching the planet. The most eye-catching idea of all is suggested by Professor Roger and Angel of the University of Arizona. His scheme would employ up to 16 trillion minutes spacecraft, each weighing about 1 gram, and to form a transparent sunlight reflecting in sunshade in orbits 1.5 million kilometer about the Earth. This could argues an angel reduce the amount of light reaching the Earth by 2%. The majority of geoengineering projects so far carried out, which include planting forests in deserts and depositing iron in the ocean to stimulate the growth of it have focused on achieving a general cooling of the Earth, but some look specifically as reversing in their melting at their polars, particularly in the Arctic. Specifically, I think the reasoning is that if you replenish the ice sheets and the frozen water of the high latitudes, more light will be reflected back into space, so reducing the warming of the ocean and atmosphere. The concept of releasing aerosol spreads into the stratosphere above the Arctic has been proposed by several scientists. This would involve using sulfur or hydrogen in sulfide aerosol, so that sulfur dioxide would form clouds, which would in turn lead to a global dimming. And the idea is modeled on historical volcano explosions, such as that of Mountain Pinatubo in the Philippines in 1991, which led to a short-term cooling of global temperature by 0.5 degree. Scientists have also scrutinized whether it's possible to preserve the ice sheets of Greenland, which with reinforced high-tension cables, preventing icebergs from moving into the sea. Meanwhile, in the Russian Arctic, geoengineering plans include the planting of millions of bridge trees, whereas the region's native evergreen pines shed their slow and absorb radiation. Bridges would shed their leaves in winters, thus enabling radiation to be reflected by the snow, resulting in Russian rivers to increase cold water flow into ice-forming areas could also be used to slow down warming. And some climate scientists, but will such schemes ever be implemented? Generally speaking, those who are most cautious about geoengineering other scientists in the research. Angel says that his plan is no substitute for developing renewable energy. The only permanent solution, and Dr. Per Ruster of the US-based Pacific Northwest National Laboratory is required guarded about is equally guarded about the rule of geoengineering. I think all of us agree that if we were to end geoengineering on a given day, then the planet would return to its pre-engineered recognition very rapidly and probably within 10 to 20 years. That's certainly something to worry about. The U.S. National Center for Atmospheric Research has already suggested that the proposal to inject sphere into the atmosphere might affect rainfall patterns across the tropics and the Southern Ocean. Geoengineering plans to inject a stratosphere arousal to seed clouds would act to cool the planet and acts to increase the extent of sea ice. But as the model suggests, some impacts on the distribution of precipitation. A further risk with geoengineering project is that you can overshoot, say Dr. Dan Nutt from the University of Bristol School of Geophysical Science, who has studied the likely impacts of the sunshine and arousal schemas on the climate. You may bring in global temperatures back to pre-industrial levels, but the risk is that the poles will still be warmer than they should be, and the tropics will be cooler than before industrialization. To avoid such a scenario, Angels projects would have to operate at half strength, all of which reinforces his view that the best option is to avoid the need for geoengineering altogether. The main reason why geoengineering is supported by many in the scientific community is that most researchers have little faith in the ability of politicians to agree and then bring in the necessary cabinet counts, even leading conservation organizations see the value of investigating the potential of geoengineering. According to Dr. Martin Summer, climate change advisor for the Wildlife Fund International Arctic Programming, human-induced climate change has brought humanity to a position where we shouldn't exclude thinking thoroughly about this topic and its possibilities. On 19 July 1545, English and French fleets were engaged in a sea battle off the coast of southern England in the area of water called the Solent between Portsmouth and the Isle of Wight. Among the English vessels was a warship by the name of Marios, built in Portsmouth some 35 years earlier. She had had a long and successful fighting career and was a favorite of King Henry VIII. Accounts of what happened to the ship vary, where witnesses agree that she was not hit by the French, and some maintain that she was outdated over London and sailing too low in the water. Others that she was mishandled by undisciplined crew. What is undisputed, however, is that the Marios sank into the Solent that day, taking at least 500 men with her. After the battle, attempts were made to recover the ship, but this failed. The Marios came to rest on the seabed, lying on her starboard right side at an angle of approximately 60 degrees. The body of the ship acted as a trap for the sand and mud carried by Solent's currents. As a result, the starboard side filled rapidly, leaving the exposed part left port side exposed port side to the eroded by marine organism and mechanical degradation, degradation. Because of the way the ship sank, nearly all of the starboard have survived interact. During the 7th and 8th century, the entry sides become covered with a layer of hard gray clay, which minimized further erosion. Then on 16 and July 1836, some fishermen in their Solent found that their equipment were caught on the underwater obstruction, which turned out to be the Maros diver John then happened to be exploring another sunken ship nearby, and the fishermen approached him, asking him to free their gear. Then they dived down and found the equipment and caused on the timber protruding in slightly from the seabed. Exploring further, he uncovered several other timbers and a bronze gun, and then he continued diving on the sides intermittently until 1840, recovering several more guns and two balls, various timbers, part of a pump and various other small fans. The Maros then fade into obscurity for another 100 years. But in 1965, military historian and amateur diver Alexander Markey, in conjunction with the British Sub Club, initiated a project called Solent Ships, were on paper. This was a plan to examine a number of loan ranks in their solents. Wasn't Mackey in really helpful was to find the Maros. Ordinary search techniques proved unsatisfactory. So Mackey entered into collaboration with Howler, adjunct professor of electrical engineering as the Massachusetts Institute of Technology in 1967. And adjunct site scan sonar system revealed a large unusually shaped object, which Mackey believed was a Maros. Further excavation revealed stray pieces of timber and an iron gun, but the climax to the operation claimed when on 5 May 1971, part of the ship's frame was uncovered. Mackey and his team now knew for certain that they had found the wreck, but were as yet unaware that were as yet unaware and that is also housed a treasure trove of beautifully preserved artifacts. Interest in the project grew, and in 1979, the Maros Trust was formed with Prince Colonels as its president and Dr. Margent its archaeological director, the decision whether or not to salvage the wreck was not an easy one, although an excavation in 1978 had shown that it must be possible to raise the hull or to original aim or to raise the hull if as all feasible. The operation was not given in their go-ahead until January 1982, where all the necessary information was available. An important factor in trying to salvage the materials was that the remaining hull was an open shell. This led to an important decision being taken, and namely to carry out the lifting operation in three very distinct stages. And the hull was attached to a lifting frame with a network of bolts and lifting wires. With the problem of the hull being sunk back downwards into the mud was overcome by using 12 hydraulic jets. And this raised it a few centimeters over a period of several days as the lifting frame rose slowly up its four legs. This was only when the hull was hanging freely from the lifting frame, clear of the seabed and the suction effects of the surrounding mud. That's the salvage operation processed to the second stage. In this stage, the lifting frame was fixed to a hook attached to a screen, and the hull was lifted completely clear of the seabed and transferred underwater into the lifting cradle. This required positioning to locate the legs into the stepping guides of the lifting cradle. The lifting cradle was designed to fit the hull using archaeological survey drawings and was fitted with airbags to provide additional cushioning for the hull's delicate timber framework. And the third and final stage was to lift the entire structure into the air, by which time the hull was also supported from below. Finally, on 11 October 1982, millions of people around the world held their breath as the timber skeleton of the materials was lifted clear of the water, ready to be returned home to Patmos. Easter Island, or Rapture as it's known locally, is home to several hundred ancient human statues. After this remote Pacific island was settled by the Polynesians, it remained isolated for centuries. All the energy and the resources that went into their mine, some of which are 10 meters tall and weigh over 7,000 kilos, came from the island itself. It's when Dutch explorers landed in 1722, they met a stone edge culture. The mine were curved with stone tools, then transported for many kilometers without the use of animals or wheels to massive stone platforms. The identity of the Maya builders were in doubt until were into the 20th century and through longest adventure, and thus the statues had been created by pre-Incas peoples from Peru, Byzantine Swiss author Ielts believed that they were built by standard extraterrestrials. Modern science, linguistics, chaotical and genetic evidence has definitely improved my builders were Polynesians, but not how they moved their creations. Local folklore maintains that the statues worked, where researchers have tended to assume that ancestors dragged their statues somehow using ropes and logs. When the Europeans arrived, Reverend was grassland with only a few scrawny trees in the 1970s and 1980s, though researchers found pollen preserved in lake sediments, which proved the island had been covered in lush plum forest for thousands of years. Only after the Polynesians arrived did those forests disappear. U.S. scientist Diamond believes that the people are descendants of Polynesian settlers ranked their own environments. They had unfortunately settled on the extremely fragile island, dry, cold, and too remote to be properly fertilized by wind-blown volcanic ash. When the islanders cleared the forest for firewood and farming, the forest didn't grow back, and trees became scared, and they could no longer construct wooden canals for fishing. The experts saw erosion and decreased their crops yields before Europeans arrived, and the raptor had descended into civil war and basins. He mentions in the collapse of their isolated civilization, and Damon writes it's a worst case scenario for what may lie ahead of us in our own future. He thinks accelerated their self-destruction. Interprets them as a power displaced by rival chieftains who, trapped on a remote little island, lacked other ways of asserting in their dominance. They competed by building ever bigger figures. Demon thinks they relied their might on wooden sledges held over log rails, but that required both a lot of wood and a lot of people. To feed their people, even more land had to be cleared. When the wood was gone and the civil war began, and the islanders began toppling. The Mai by the 19th century now were standing. Archaeologist Terry Hans of the University of Hawaii and Carl Lipo of California State University agree that Easter Island lost its lush forest and that it was an ecological catastrophe. But that believe the islanders themselves weren't to blame, and them and their my certainly wasn't. The archaeological excavation indicates that the revenants went to heroic effect to protect the resources of their windlashes. In fertile fields, they built thousands of circular stone wind bricks and granite inside them, and used broken volcanic rocks to keep the soil moist. In short, Hans and Lipo argue the prehistorical raptors were pioneers of sustainable farming. Hans and Lipo contend that my building was an activity that helped keep the pace between islanders. They also believed that moving their mine required few people and no wood because they were worked upright. On that issue, Hans and Lipo see archaeological evidence backs up Ragna's folklore. Recent experiments indicates that as few as 18 people could, with three strong ropes and a bit of practice, easily maneuver a 1,000 kilo replica a few hundreds meters. And the figures fat beliefs titled them forward and a D-shaped base allowed handler to roll and rock them side to side. Moreover, Hans and Lipo are convinced that the settler were not wholly responsible for the loss of the island's traits. Archaeological offense of nuts from the extinct Easter Island and palm shows tally groups made by the teeth of Polynesian rats. The rats arrived along with the settlers, and in just a few years, Hans and Lipo calculate they would have overrun the island. They would have prevented the resettling of the slow-growing palm trees, and thereby doomed the rapid forest. Even without the settlers' campaign of deforestation, no doubt the rats and birds act too. Hans and Lipo also see no evidence that rabbit civilization collapsed when the palm forest did. They think its population grew rapidly and then remained more or less stable until the arrival of the Europeans, who introduced deadly diseases to which islanders had no immunity. Then, in the 19th century, slave traders decimated their population, which shrank to 111 people by 1877. Rivaled. Hans and Lipo's vision, therefore, is one of the islands populated by peaceful and ingenious mine builders and careful stewards of the land, rather than by reckless destroyers running their own environment and society, rather than a case of abject failure. Rabelais is an unlikely story of success, and they claim, and whether it's their case, there are surely some valuable lessons which the world at large can learn from the story of rapper Leon. An engineering discipline called aesthetics is seeking to bring scientific objective to the study of arts and has already given us a better understanding of many masterpieces. The blurred imagery of inspirationist paintings seem to stimulate their brains. For instance, science thinks the amygdala plays a crucial role in our feelings. That finding must explain why many people find these pieces so moving. Could the same approach also shed light on abstract 20th century 20th century pieces for mandarins, geometrical mandarins, and geometrical blocks of color to pollock, seemingly a haphazard arrangement of splashed paint on canvas. Skeptics believe that people claim to like such works simply because they are famous. We certainly do have an inclination to follow their crowd. When asked to make simple perceptual decisions, such as matching a shape to its rotated image, for example, people often choose a definitely wrong answer if they see others doing the same. It is easy to imagine that this mentally it would have even more impact on the fuzzy concept like art appreciation, where there is no right or wrong answer. Angelina Helena Darling in Boston College, Massachusetts, responded to these debates by asking volunteers to view pairs of paintings, either the creations of famous abstract artists or the doodles of infants, chimps, and elephants, and they then had to judge which they preferred. A third of their paintings were given no caption, where many were labeled incorrectly. Volunteers must think they were viewing a champion's messy brushstrokes when they were actually seeing an acclaimed masterpiece. In each set of trials, volunteers generally preferred the work of renowned artists, even when they believed it was by an animal or a child. It seems that the viewer can sense the artist's vision in paintings, even if they can't explain why. Roberts Perro, an artist based at Cardiff University, creates ambiguous works that are neither entirely abstract nor clearly representational. In one study, Pearl and his collaborators asked volunteers to decide how powerful they considered an artwork to be and whether they saw anything familiar in the piece. And the longer they took answer these questions, the more highly they rated the piece under scrutiny, and the greater their neural activity. It would seem that the brain sees these images as puzzles, and the harder it is to decipher the meaning, the more rewarding is the moments of recognition. And what about artists such as Mandarin, whose paintings consist exclusively of horizontal and vertical lines encasing blocks of color? Mandarin's work are decidedly simple, but eye-tracking studies confirm that they are meticulously composed, and that simply rotating a piece radically changes the way we view it. With the originals, volunteers' eyes tend to see longer on certain places in the image, but with their altered versions, they would fit across a piece more rapidly. As a result, the volunteers considered the altered version less flexible when they later rated their work. In a similar study, Ocean in Virginia of Toronto University asked the volunteer to compare original paintings with ones which he had altered by moving objects around within the frame. He found that almost everyone preferred the original, whether it was a Van Gogh, a still life, or an abstract by a more also found that changing the composition of their paintings reduce activation in those brain areas linked with meaning and interpretation. In other experiments, Alex Forsyth of the University of Liverpool analyzed the visual intricacy of different species of art, and her results suggest that many artists use a key level of detail to place the brain into little, and their work is boring. Too much results in a kind of perceptual overload. According to Forsyth, what's more appealing in pieces, both abstract and representational, shows signs of fractal, also repeated motifs recurring in different scales. Fractals are common throughout nature. For example, is in the shapes of mountain peaks or the branches of trees. It is possible that our visual system which involved in the Greek outdoors, finds it easier to process such patterns. It is also intriguing in that the brain appears to process moments when we see a handwritten letter, as if we are replaying the writer's moments of creation. This had led some to wonder whether Pollock's works feel so dynamic because the brain reconstructs the energetic actions and that artists used as he painted. This may be down to our brain's mirror neurons, which are known to mimic others' actions. Their hypothesis will need to be thoroughly tested. However, it must even be the case that we could use aesthetic studies to understand the longevity of some pieces of artwork, where their fashions of the time must shape what is currently in popular. Works that are best adapted to our visual system may be the most likely to linger once the trends of previous generations have been forgotten. It is still early days for the field of neuroaesthetics, and these studies are probably only a taste of what is to come. It would, however, be foolish to reduce our appreciation into a set of scientific laws. We shouldn't underestimate the importance of the style of a particular artist, their place in history, and their artistic involvement of their time. Abstract art offers both a challenge and the freedom to play with different interpretations. In some ways, it's not so different to science, where we are constantly looking for systems and decoding meanings and so that we can view and appreciate the world in a new way. Silk is a fine, smooth material produced from the cocoon, 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 cocoons, cocoon, cocoons. So the protective shell, soft protective cocoons, cocoons. Those protective shells that are made by marbury silkworms in such levels. Legend has it that this was latest wife of the Yellow Emperor, ruler of China in about 3000 BC, who discovered silkworms. One account of the story goes that as she was taking a walk in her husband's gardens, she discovered that silkworms were responsible for the destruction of several mulberry trees. She collected a number of cocoons, and sat down to have a rest. It just so happened that where she was sipping some tea, one of the cocoons that she had collected landed in the hot tea and started to unravel into a fine thread. Lieutenants found that she could weave in this thread around her fingers. Subsequently, she persuaded her husband to allow her to rear silkworms on a grove of mulberry trees. She also devised a special reel to draw the fibers from the cocoon into a single thread, so that they would be strong enough to be woven into fabric. What is unknown just how much ever this is true. It is certainly known that silk cultivation has existed in China for several millennia. Originally, silkworm farmings were solely restricted to women, and it was they who were responsible for their growing, harvesting, and weaving. Silk quickly grew into a symbol of status, and originally only royalty were entitled to have cloth made of silk. The roots were gradually relaxed over the years until finally during the Qing dynasty in 1644 to 1911 AD, even peasants, the lowest caste, were also entitled to wear silk. Sometime during the Han Dynasty 206 BC to 220 AD, silk was so prized that it was also used as a unit of currency. Government officials were paid their salary in silk, and farmers paid their taxes in grain and silk. Silk was also used as diplomatic gifts by the emperor, fishing lines, in bowstrings, musical instruments, and paper were all made using silk. The earliest indication of silk paper being used were discovered in the tomb of a noble who is estimated to have died around 168 AD. In demand for this exotic fabric eventually created the lucrative trade route now known as the Silk Road, taking silk western world and bringing gold, silver, and wool to the east. Cocoons. It was named the Silk Road after its most precious commodity, which was considered to be worth more than gold. The Silk Road stretched over 6,000 kilometers from eastern China to the Mediterranean Sea, following the Great Wall of China, climbing the Pamir mountain range, crossing modern day Afghanistan, and going on to the Middle East, with a major trading in markets in Damascus. From there, the merchandise were shipped across the Mediterranean, and seafood merchants traveled the entire routes, and goods were handled mostly by a series of middlemen. With the Mulberry silkworm being native to China, the country was the world's sole producer of silk for many hundreds of years. The secrets of silk making eventually reached the rest of the world via the Byzantine Emperor, which ruled over the Mediterranean region of southern Europe, North Africa, and the Middle East during the period 330 to 1453 AD, according to another legend. Monks were working in for the Emperor Justina smuggled silkworm eggs to Constantine. In 550 AD, concealed inside hollow bamboo working canals. The was as secretive as the Chinese, however, and for many centuries, the weaving and the trading in silk fabric was a strict imperial monopoly. Then, in the 7th century, the Arabs conquered Paris, in capturing their magnificent silk. In the process, silk production thus spread through Africa, Sicily, and Spain, as the Arabs swept through these lands and Andalusia in southern Spain, or the Europeans main silk producing center in the 10th century. By the 30th century, however, Italy had become a European leader in silk production, and experts, Valentine and merchants traded extensively in silk and encouraged the silk growers to settle in Italy. Even now, the silk processed in the province of Como in northern Italy enjoyed its esteemed reputation. In the 19th century and industrialization, and saw the downfall of the European silk industry. Cheaper Japanese silk trade in which were greatly facilitated by the opening of the Suez Canal, was one of the many factors driving the trend. Then in the 20th century, new man-made fibers such as nano started to be used in what has traditionally been in silk products, such as stocking and parachatters, and the parachutes. The two World War, which interrupted the supply of raw material from Japan, and also stifled the European silk industry. After the Second World War, Japan's silk production was restored with improved production and the quality of raw silk. Japan was to remain the world's biggest producer of raw silk, and particularly the only major exporter of raw silk until the 1970s. However, in more recent decades, China has gradually recaptured its position as the world's biggest producer of and exporter of raw silk and silk yarn. Today, around 125,000 Tons of silk are produced in the world, and almost two-thirds of that production takes place in China. Animal migrations, however, it is defined as far more than just the movements of animals. It can loosely be described as travel that takes place at regular intervals, often in an annual cycle. That may involve many members of a species, and is rewarded only after a long journey. Its struggle is just the inherited instincts in the biologists who Daniel has identified 5 characteristics that apply in varying degrees and combinations to all migrations. They are prolonged movements that carry animals outside familiar habitats, and they tend to be linear, lost zigzagging, and they involve special behavior concerning in preparation, such as overfeeding and arrival. They demand special allocations of energy, and one more migrating animals maintain an intense attentiveness to their greater mission, which keeps them undistracted by temptations, and undeterred by challenges that would turn other animals aside. And an Arctic tern on its 20,000 kilometer flights from the extreme south of South America to the Arctic cycle were taken no notice of a smelly herring offered from bird watches both along the way, where local gloves were dived anxiously for such hangouts. Then tern flies on, while the Arctic tern resists the destruction because it is driven in the moments by an instinctive sense of something we humans find admirable, large purpose. In other words, it is determined to reach its destination. The bird senses that it can eat. The bird senses that it can eat, rest, and meet nature. Right now, it is totally focused on the journey. Its undivided intent is arrival, reaching some gravely coastline in the Arctic, upon which other Arctic terns have coveraged. Where serve its larger purpose as shaped by evolution, and finding a place, a time, and a set of circumstances in which it can successfully hatch and rear offspring. But migration is a complex issue, and biologists define it differently depending in part on what sorts of animals they study. Joe Berger of the University of Montana, who works on the American pterodactyl and other large terrestrial mammals, preferred what he calls a simple practical definition and suited to his beast. Movements from a seasonal home area away to another home area and back again. Generally, the reason for such a seasonal back and forth movements is to seek resources that aren't available within a single area year-round. But daily vertical movements by zooplankton in the ocean upward by night to seek food, downward by day to escape predators. Predators can also be considered migration, and so can their movements of upheads when having depleted the young leaves on one foot plants, and their offspring then fly onward to a different host plants with no one uphide ever returning to where it started. Danger is an evolutionary biologist who studies insects. Its definition is more intricate than Berger's, citing those five features that distinguish migration from other forms of movement. They allow for the fact that, for example, upheads will become sensitive to blue sky from the sky, which blue lights from the sky when it's time to take off on their big journey, and sensitive to the yellow lights reflected from tender young leaves when it's appropriate to land, and birds will frighten themselves with heavy feeding in advance of long migration flights. And the value of this definition, and Daniel argues, is that this focuses attention on what's the phenomenon of wild beasts. Migration shares with the phenomenon of the upheads, and therefore helps guide researchers towards understanding how evolution has produced them all. Human behavior, however, is having a detrimental impact on animal migration, and the prolonged which resembles an antelope, though they are unrelated, is the farthest land mammal of the New World, one population which spends their summer in the mountainous Grand Teton National Park of the Western USA. It follows a narrow route from summer range in the mountains across a river and down onto the plains. Here, they wait out in the frozen months, feeding mainly on sagebrush below or clear of snow. The pronghorn are notable for their invariance of their migration routes and the severity of its construction as three bottlenecks. If they can't pass through each of the three during their spring migration, they can't reach the boundary of summer grazing. If they can't pass through again in autumn, escaping in thoughts onto those wind-blown plains, they are likely to die trying to overwinter in the deep snow. Pronghorn dependence on distance, vision, and speed to keep safe. For predators, traverse high open shoulders of land, where they can see and run as one of their bottlenecks. In further hill are raised to form a V, leaving a corridor of open ground owning about 150 meters wide field with private homes. Increasing development is needing toward graces for the pronghorn, threatening to choke off their pathway. Conservation scientists, along with some biologists and land managers within the USA National Park Service and other agencies, are now working to preserve migrational behaviors and not just the species and habitats. A national forest has recognized the path of the piranha, much of which passes across the native land as a protected migration corridor. Thus, neither the Forest Service nor the Park Service can control what happens on private land as a bottleneck, and which certain and with certain other migrating species. The challenge is complicated further by vastly greater distance traversed and more jurisdictions, more borders, more dangers along the way. We will require wisdom and resourcefulness, jurisdiction, to ensure that migration species can continue on their journeying a while longer. Occasionally, in some difficult musical composition, there are beautifully but easy parts so simple a beginner could play them. And so it is with mathematics as well. There are some discoveries in advanced mathematics that do not depend on specialized knowledge, not even on Edinburgh geometry, or trigonometry. Instead, they may involve at most a little arithmetic, such as the sum of two odd numbers is even, and the common sense each of the eight chapters in this book illustrates this phenomenon. Anyone can understand every step in the reasoning. In the thinking in each chapter uses most only elementary arithmetics, and sometimes not even that. Thus, all readers will have the chance to participate in a mathematical experience and to appreciate the beauty of mathematics, and to become familiar with its logical yet intuitive styling of thinking. One of the purposes in writing this book is to give readers who haven't had the opportunity to see and enjoy real mathematics their chance to appreciate the mathematical way of thinking. I want to reveal not only some of the fascinating discoveries, but more importantly, the reasoning behind them. In that respect, this book differs from most books on mathematics written for the general public. Some present the lives of colorful mathematicians. Others describe important applications of mathematics. As others go into mathematical procedures, but assume that the reader is adept in using algebra. I hope this book will help bridge that tolerance and give that separate the two cultures, the humanities and the scientists, or should I say the right brain, intuitive, and the left brain, analytical, numerical, their chapters where it illustrates mathematics is not restricted to the analytical and numerical. Intuition plays a significant role on the alleged gap. It can be narrowed or completely overcome by anyone, in parts because each of us is far from using the forgetfulity of either side of the brain to illustrate our human potential. I cite a structural engineer who is an artist, an electrical engineer who is an opera singer who published mathematical research, and a mathematician who publishes short stories. Other scientists have written books to explain their fields to non-scientists. but they have necessarily had to omit in their mathematics, although it provides the foundation of their theorist. The reader must remain a tantalized spectator rather than an involved participant, since the appropriate language for describing the detail is much of science is mathematics. Whether the subject is expanding universe is subatomic particles or chromosome, though the broad outline of scientific theory can be sketch it intuitively when a part of the physical universe is finally understood. Its description often looks like a page in a mathematics text. Still, the non-mathematical reader can go far in understanding mathematical reasoning. This book presents the details that illustrates the mathematical style of thinking, which involves a sustained step-by-step analysis, experiments, and insights. You will turn these pages much more slowly than when reading a novel or a newspaper. It may help to have a pencil and a paper ready to check claims and carry out experiments. As adults, I kept in mind two types of readers: those who enjoyed mathematics until they were turned off by unpleasant episodes, usually around the 5th grade, and the mathematics cylinders who will find much that is new throughout the book. This book also serves readers who simply want to sharpen their analytical skills. Many careers, such as law and medicine, require extent, process, and analyze. Each chapter offers article in following a sustained and closely argued line of thought. Thus, mathematics can develop this skill is shown by these two testimonials. A physician wrote the discipline of analytical thought process mathematics prepared me extremely well for medical school. In medicine, one is faced with a problem which must be thoroughly analyzed before a solution can be found. The process is similar to doing mathematics. A lawyer made the same points. Although I had no background in law, not even one political science course, I did well as one of the best law schools. I attribute much of my success there to having learned through the study of mathematics, and in particular theorems, how to analyze complicated principles. Lawyers who have studied mathematics can master the legal principle in a way that most others can't. I hope you will share my delights in watching as simple or even naive questions lead to remarkable solutions and purely theoretical discoveries found anticipated applications. Anticipated. Two biomedical researchers all over the world, twins, offer a precious precious opportunity to untangle the influence of genes and the environments of nature and nurture, because identical twins come from a single fertilized egg that split into two, and they share virtually the same genetic code, and any differences between them or one twin in having younger looking skin, for example, must be due to environmental factors such as less time spent in the sun. Alternatively, by comparing the experience of identical twins with those fraternal twins, which come from separate eggs and share on average half their DNA. Researchers can quantify in the extent to which our genes affect our lives. If identical twins are more similar to each other with respect to alignment than frontal twins are, then vulnerability to the disease must be rooted at least in part of heredity. These two lines of research studying in the differences between identical twins to pinpoints the influence of environment and comparing identical twins with fraternal ones to measure the of inheritance have been crucial to understanding the interplay of nature and nurture in determining our personalities, behavior, and vulnerability to disease. And the idea of using twins to measure the influence of heredity dates back to 1875 when the English scientist Francis Galton first suggested the approach and coined the phrase nature and nurture. Thus, twins studies to surprising twist in the 1980s with the arrival of studies into identical twins who had been separated at birth and reunited as adults. Over 2 decades, 137 sets of twins eventually visited Thomas Butcher's lab. In what's become known as the study of twins revealed parts. Numerous tests were carried out on the twins, and they were each asked more than 15,000 questions. Butcher and his colleagues used this mountain of data to identify how far twins are affected by their genetic makeup. The key to their approach or statistical concepts are called heritability. In broad terms, the heritability of traits measures the extent to which difference among members of a population can be explained by differences in their genetics. And wherever Burchard and other scientists looked, it seemed they found the invisible hand of genetic influence in helping to shape our lives. Lately, however, twin studies have helped lead scientists to radical new conclusion that nature and nurture are not the only elemental focus at work. According to a recent field called epigenetics, there is a third factor also in play, one that in some cases serves as a bridge between the environmental and our genes, and in other operates on its own to shape who we are. Epigenetics process chemical reactions try to neither nature or nature. But representing what researchers have called a third component. These reactions influence how our genetic code is expressed, how each gene is strengthened or weakened, even turned on or off to build our bones, brains, and all the other parts of our bodies. If you think of our DNA as an immense piano keyboard and our genes as their keys, each key symbolizing a segment of DNA responsible for a particular note or traits, and the other keys combining to make us who we are. Their epigenetic process determine when and how each key can be struck, changing their tune and being played. One way the study of epigenetics is revolutionizing our understanding of biology is by revealing a mechanism by which the environment directly impacts on genes. Studies of animals, for example, have shown that when rats experience stress during pregnancy, it can cause epigenetic changes in the fetus that lead to behavior problems as the rodents grows up. Other epigenetics processes appear to occur randomly, where others are normal, such as those that guide embryonic cells as they become heart, brain, or liver cells. For example, genetics. Daniel's read has worked with many twins over the years and thought deeply about what twins studies have taught us. It's very clear when you look at twins that much of what they share is hardwired. She said many things about them are absolutely the same and audible, but it's also clear when you get to know them and that other things about them are different. Epigenetics is the origin of a lot of those differences. In my view, credit Thomas works for today's search in twins that it was the trailblazer. She says, we forget that 50 years ago things like heart disease were through us to be caused entirely by lifestyles and was through us to be due to poor mothering. And twin studies have allowed us to be more reflective about what people are actually born with and what's caused by experience. Having said that, read at the latest work in epigenetics promise to take our understanding even further. What I like to say is that nature writes something in pencil and something in pen. And it says, things written in pen you can't change the DNA, but things written in pencil you can. That's epigenetics. Now that we are actually able to look at the DNA and see where the pencil writings are, it's sort of a whole new world. Though we must think of film as an essentially visual experience, we really cannot afford to underestimate the importance of film sound. A meaningful soundtrack is often as complicated as the image on the screen, and is ultimately just as much the responsibility of the director. And the entire soundtrack consists of the three essential ingredients: the human voice, the sound effects, and music. And these three tracks must be mixed and balanced so as to produce the necessary emphasis, which in turn creates desired effects. Topics which essentially refer to the three previously mentioned tracks are discussed below. The include dialogue, synchronous and asynchronous sound effects, and music. Let us start with dialogue, as is the case with stage drama. A dialogue serves to tell the story and experience and expresses feeling and motivations of characters as well. Often with film characterization, the audience perceive little or no difference between the character and the actor. Thus, for example, the actor Humphrey Bogart is the character's son spread film personality and life personality seem to merge. Perhaps this is because the very texture of a performer's voice supplies elements of character. When voice texture fits the performance psychology and the gestures hold in a very realistic persona emerges, and the viewer seems is not an actor working at his craft, but another human being struggling with life. It is interesting to note that how dialogue is used, and the very amounts of dialogue used varies widely among films. For example, in the highly successful science fiction film 2001, little dialogue was evidence, and most of it was banal and a little intrinsic interest. In this way, the filmmaker was able to portray what terms Sobek's and Vivian in Sobek's core in introduction to film, the inadequacy of human response when compared with the magnificent technology created by man and the visual beauties of the universe. The comedy Bring Up Baby, on the other hand, presents practically non-stop dialogue delivered at a breakneck speed. This use of dialogue underscores not only the dizzy quality of the character played by Catherine Hepburn, but also the absurdity of the film itself, and thus this honor and the audience is bounced from gig to gig and conversation to conversation. There is no time for audience reflection, and the audience is caught up in the whirlwind of activity in simply managing to follow their plots. This film presents pure escapism, largely due to its frenetic dialogue. Synchronous sound effects are those sounds which are synchronized or matched with what is viewed. For example, if the film portrays a character playing the piano, the sounds of the piano are projected. Synchronous sounds contribute to the realism of film and also help to create a particular atmosphere. For example, the click of a door being opened may simply serve to convince the audience that the image portrait is real, and the audience may only subconsciously note the expected sound. However, if the click of the opening door is part of a meaningless action, such as burglary, the sound mixer may call attention to the click with an increasing in volume. This helps to engage the audience in moments of suspense. Asynchronous sound effects, on the other hand, are not matched with a visible source of the sound on screen. Such sounds are included so as to provide an appropriate emotional nuance, and they may also add to the realism of the film. For example, a filmmaker might opt to include the background sound of an ambulance steering in where the foreground sound and image portraits in arguing couple. The asynchronous ambulance steering underscores the physical injury encouraged in their arguments. At the same time, the noise of the siren adds to the realism of the film by acknowledging the film's setting. We are probably all familiar with the background music in films, which has become so by critics as to be noticeable in its absence, and we are aware that it's used to add emotion and rhythm. Even not meant to be noticeable is often provided an emotional attitude toward the story and or the characters depicted. In addition, background music often foreshadows a change in the mood. For example, dissonant music may be used in film to indicates an approaching but not yet visible means or disaster. Background music may aid viewer understanding by linking scenes. For example, a particular music theme associated with an individual character or situation may be repeated at various points in a film in order to remind the audience of silent motifs or ideas. Film sound compares convention and innovations, and we have come to expect an acceleration of music during car chase and quickly indoors in horror films. It is important to note as well that sound is often brilliantly convinced. The effects of sound are often largely subtle and often are noted by only our subconscious mind. We need to foster an awareness of film sound as well as film space, and so to truly appreciate an art form that sprang into life during the 20th century, the modern film. Of all mankind, then for the creations, language must take pride or place or other inventions. The wheel of agriculture sliced bread, many have transformed our materials existence, but the advance of language is what made us human compared to language or other inventions pale in significance since everything we have ever achieved depends on language and originates from it. Without language, we could never have embarked on our actions into unparalleled power over all other animals and even over nature itself. But language is the foremost, not just because it came first. Its own rights. In its own right, it is a tool of extraordinary sophistication, yet based on an idea of ingenious simplicity. These marvelous inventions of comprising an invention of composing out of 25 or 30 sounds, thus infinite variety of expressions, which words have in themselves no likeness and to what is in our mind, and now us to disclose to others its whole secrets, and to make known and to those who can not penetrates all that we image, and other various strains of our soul So this was how in 1660 the renowned French grammarians of the port's royal abbey near Vivresia distilled the essence of language, and no one thinks has celebrated and more eloquently in the magnitude of its achievements. Even so, there is just one flaw in all this having a price for the homage to language unique accomplishments conceals as simple as critical incongruity. A language is mankind's greatest invention, except of course that it was never invented. This appearance paradox is at the core of our fascination with language, and it holds many of its secrets. Language often seems so skillfully drafted that the one can hardly imagine it as anything other than the perfect handwork of the master craftsman. How else could this Instruments make so much out of barely 3 dozen measly morsels of sound. In themselves, these configurations of mouth, P, F, B, V, T, D, K, G, S, H, Sh, A, E, and so on, amounts to nothing more than a few haphazard speeds and splutters, random noise with no meaning, no ability to express, no power to explain, but run them through the cogs and wheels of the language machine. It neatly rearrange them in some very special orders, and there is nothing that this meaningless stream of air cannot do from a sign in the interminable boredom of existence to revealing a fundamental order of the universe. The most extraordinary thing about language, however, is there one doesn't have to be a genius to set its wheels in motion. The language machine allows just about everybody, from pre-modern forages in the subtropic savannah to post-modern philosophers in the suburban spiral, to tie this meaningless sound together into an infinite variety of subtle scenes and are apparently without the slightest exertion, and yet it is precisely this deceptive which makes language a victim of its own success, since its everyday life is triumphs are usually taken for granted. The wheels of language run so smoothly that one really bother to stop and think about all the resourcefulness and the expertise that must have gone into making it tick. Language concerns art. Often it is only the instrument of foreign tongues with their many exotic and outlandish features, and that brings home the wonder of language design. One of the shortest stunts that some languages can pull off its ability to build up words of breakingness and thus express in one word what English takes a whole sentence to say. the Turkish word, to take one example, means nothing less than you are one of those who we can turn into a town dweller. In case you were wondering, this monastery really is one word, not merely many different words squashed together. Most of its components cannot even stand up on their own. And if that sounds like some one-off freak, they consider submarines in the language spoken on the bank of the Euphrates some 5,000 years ago by the people who invented writing and thus enabled the documentation of history. Submarines were like when it might seem rather tame compared to the Turkish colossal above. What is so impressive about it, however, is not its lengthiness, but rather the reserved, just thrifty, compactness of its construction. The word is made up of different slots, each corresponding to a particular portion of meaning. This sleek design allows single sounds to convey useful information, and in fact, even the absence of a sound has been enlisted to express something specific. If you were to ask which bit in the submarine word corresponded is to the prolonged it in English translation, when he had made it suitable for her, then the answer would have to be nothing. Many a very particular kind of nothing. And the nothing in that stands in the empty slots in the middle. That's the terminology is so fine-tuned, and that's even a non-sound, when carefully placed in a particular position, has been invested with a specific function. Who could possibly have come up with such a nifty contraption?